Hello, Toni Cannelli, a drum teacher from England. I want to talk about the subject of drum education today, and it's something I've been involved with for a long time, but believe it or not, when I first started out, it was the last thing I'd ever think about was becoming a drum teacher. When I did first start playing the drums, I was about 7, and I was in a marching band, and it was a really good marching band, and I played in venues like the Royal Albert Hall and the Royal Festival Hall. We went to Europe. It was a good experience for someone who was 10. And then at the same time, I got a drum kit and I started to play in local bands. And then I started to think about it. My mum was a professional tap dancer, and she was saying, "What are you going to do when you leave school?" And I thought, well, I don't know, professional drummer. So I started to take lessons with a really amazing drum teacher called Bob Armstrong. Now, Bob was a professional drummer, so I learned that he could walk the talk, basically. I learned all about professional drumming with him, and I started to really get... In fact, let's go over and show you a picture. This is me and Bob. We met up after I've been a professional drummer for a long time. I met him at the London Drum Show quite a few years ago. Sadly, Bob's no longer with us, so let's go and have a look. So, studying with Bob was a really big part of my life because it was inspirational, and he encouraged me to do it professionally, to which I did. I turned professional, and then I started to do gigs all around the world, which is quite nice. Europe, Asia, America, it was all great stuff. And believe it or not, my first experience of teaching was when I was working out in America. And there was a guy who used to bring his son to all the gigs that I played at. They were kind of like fans. And eventually he sort of convinced me to give his son a drum lesson, which I didn't really want to do. And I quite enjoyed it. And then after that, I carried on with my professional career, and I never thought about teaching again. And then I was playing with an orchestra, and most of the guys were situated in Sheffield. So I bought a house in Sheffield. When I bought the house in Sheffield, it was the first time I had somewhere to live. I wasn't out on the road all the time. And I started to do studio work. I used to play with loads and loads of bands. And I started to do teaching because people wanted me to teach them. So at that point, I also started up a thing called Drummers Alliance. And Drummers Alliance is an organisation to help people get enthusiastic about drumming. So we used to do nationwide competitions for marching bands, percussionists and drummers, and it was a lot of fun. And a lot of people that went into those competitions, they were inspired to become professional drummers. Let me show you a picture of one of the guys who went in for our competition. His name's Steve Barney, and he's gone on to become one of the UK's leading drummers. So look, here's a picture. Also at that time, I started to do drum demonstrations, educational ones, and I was doing it for a company called Remo. And basically that was a lot of fun, going out, trying to inspire rooms of drummers. I did it with some really great educator-stroke drummers as well. One of my favourite drummers, Dennis Chambers, and another guy called Ricky Lawson, who played with Michael Jackson. There, let me show you a picture of those guys. And it was a lot of fun. But while I was doing the drum demos, the drum clinics, one of my friends called Dom Famularo asked me to do a clinic with him. And I thought, I'm not really, want to do that, because I'm a bit like Dom, same age, same whatever. So I got one of my students to do it. At the time he was only 10, and his name's Pete Ray Biggin. And Pete did an amazing job at it, and that inspired him to go on to become a professional drummer. He's played with Amy Winehouse, he's played with Level 42. Hey, look, let's show you a picture of me and Pete. So I kept on with the clinics and all that kind of business, doing studio work, etc. And then with my teaching, like Bob, most of the guys that Bob taught have gone on to become professional drummers, because Bob was a professional drummer. was a professional drummer, and I bump into them every now and again. So let me show you some pictures of some of Bob's ex-students and myself, and we're all professional drummers and we're all teachers. Have a look. Basically, with my teaching, if you look on my website, lots of them have become professional drummers. But basically, I've learned teaching is an evolving thing. I've learned how to teach over the years by trial and error. When I first started to teach, I used to write all my exercises out myself. I didn't teach from books. And one of the things that I remember about one lesson that I gave, someone came to a lesson and said, I went to see a band at a famous venue in Sheffield called the Lead Mill, and he said they were a great band. He said the drummer was brilliant, and you're his teacher. So I said, oh, all right. What's his name? He said, oh, I don't know. I said, well, how do you know I taught him then? Listen, he sounded just like you. I realised I was doing it wrong, so I completely changed the way that I taught, because it's not about me. It's a good teacher shows a student where to look, but not what to see. So since then, I sort of don't show people what I do. I just encourage people to do what they do and find themselves in the lessons. Okay. Also, I try and motivate people. Motivation, I got that from Bob, and there's a guy, Dom, as I've talked about before, Dom Famularo is an incredibly motivational guy. There's a picture of me and Dom recently. So teaching is all about trying to connect with the student, get them to find their way of doing things, and then if they want to take it professionally, help them to get there. But they just want to do it for a hobby, fine, no problem. And the great thing about teaching, you get to meet all sorts of different types of people. Well, as a teacher, I teach judges, lawyers, nurses, doctors, professional footballers, professional wrestlers, you name it. They all come for drum lessons. So it's really, really interesting. You meet all kinds of different types of people. But the most important thing is I try to teach without any ego, and just trying to help people to get to where they want to go to in their journey in life. So hopefully this has been a little bit of a inspirational talk. If you want to know more about me, go on my website, www.tonicannelli.com. Thanks a lot.